reading the statement.
Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2020. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, the following First, on December 6, 2019, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on December 6, 2019, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on December 6, 2019, said notice was posted in the office of the zoning board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code in your state fee, for those here in the municipal building, the facility is designed with two emergency exits which are on our right, the front and rear of the meeting room. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching their decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. Also, a notice was sent to the Asbury Press and Star Ledger that this would be a remote meeting. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to give a little housekeeping. I would ask that everybody leave their mute alone. We will mute and unmute everyone from here. This way, only the participants, the applicant, and their team will be allowed to speak, and then we will open it up for the board professionals. So once again, please never touch your mute button. We will make it last from here. You also need to give us a second as we switch things because there is a little delay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm muted.
You're back, Wendell.
Okay. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hughes. One second, Wendell.
I'm here. I just unmuted myself.
Mr. Mertens.
I'm here.
Mr. Moretti. I have not heard from Mr. Moretti. Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mr. Orozco.
I'm here.
I have not heard from Mr. Sayed. Is Mr. Sayed on the line? Mr. Cantor.
I'm here.
Mr. Gonzalez has been excused. Chairman Nansen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, that's 6 members, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Listen, Paul, Moretti, and Gonzalez is the other. Okay. Okay, could everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Tropoli, you mind swearing in the professionals?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, will the professionals please stand or raise your right hand? You swear that the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, help you God.
I do.
I do.
So this evening, we have Mr. Cunliffe, Ms. Food, and Mr. Howell. And I believe that's all. Is that right, Ellen?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Sherry's not online.
No, I have not heard from Sherry.
Okay.
Oh,
Is
hold
there,
on
could
one
you
second.
ask Matt why we're,
1 second. Okay, go ahead, Wendell.
is there a reason, I'm getting feedback.
It must be you because we're not hearing any.
Okay, every time somebody speaks.
I'm getting it too, Eileen. It's bad. You can barely, I'm hearing like every other word.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Plus, YouTube doesn't have any audio, but everybody knows.
I do know that, and we're trying to work on that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I still get that feedback, but anyway, approval of minutes?
There are no minutes this evening.
Lee, what microphones are y'all using?
We're using the camera microphone.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it's getting the echo.
If I could just weigh in real quick, it's only coming from when we talk. When Eileen talks, I'm not getting an echo. It's only when all of us talk. I don't know if that helps.
Okay. No minutes. Vouchers?
Is it any better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can,
We lowered the volume in
can
the
you
room,
hear
so
me?
that can help. But just give me 1 second.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it might be because you're so close to a wall behind you, the sound from the speakers is bouncing off the wall and getting picked back up like 2 or 3 times through your microphone on your laptop. So I don't know if you have like a longer room that you could face that might improve the situation for you. It's just the sound coming from the speakers. It's bouncing off the wall and probably picking up,
Yeah, but it's
Just
coming from
feedback.
everybody, not just me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, what's happening is when we talk, it's coming through your speakers, and then it's going off the wall, and then it's getting picked back up by your own microphone, and then it's just an infinite feedback loop.
I think it was actually when Eileen had to roll over her speakers a little bit. Because like Wendell said, I was hearing it, and I think a lot of us were hearing the same thing, and I
Well, I
had a
don't
big
hear it now.
behind me.
I don't hear it now.
Yeah, it's gone now.
Yeah. Okay. Vouchers, Eileen?
There's no vouchers.
Correspondence?
I have no correspondence.
Wow, we're doing good. Okay, resolution. Case number BA 20111. Jasprit signed. Resolution granting bulk variance for deck in 6-foot fence in front yard setback. Eligible voters: Hughes, Mertens, O'Donnell, Gonzalez, and Nansen. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hughes. Do I have a second?
If anybody's second, you have to unmute yourself.
Hold on a second.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
Who seconded that?
Mr. Martin.
Who was my second on that?
Rich Mertens.
Rich Merton, second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell's not here, Chairman Anderson?
Yes.
If we could just take a short recess, I'm gonna try to fix something because there's still no sound on the live feed. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess here.
The zoning board will now reconvene.
Okay, thank you. Application before the board. Application number BA 1364A. 048, sorry. The light in my workshop is not that good. 5 Points Business Park LLC, FKA Okerson 33 Associates. Use variance and amended preliminary and final major site plan. Application 5 Points Business Park is the applicant and the owner seeking use variance to amend preliminary and final major site plan approval to construct the previously approved flex space building number 5 and instead utilize the space for administrative purposes in association with the New Horizon Autism Center, along with 10 additional parking spaces, 2 8-foot by 12-foot by 10-foot high storage shed with associated concrete walks and a 20 by 20-foot stone barbecue area, an 8-foot by 20-foot greenhouse on premises known as Block 169, Lot 1.11, the southwest corner of the intersection of Route 33 and Okerson Road. Who's my attorney on this?
That's William Mayer.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, how are you, sir?
Let's see. I'm Bill Mayer, son of the Corcoran, so represent. You here?
You want to give us a little brief summary of what
I
you're
would like
seeking to do and
Yeah.
we'll find out how many witnesses you need to swear in and we'll get everybody sworn in also.
All right, that'd be fine. This is actually, the summary that was given is very accurate. This is the 4th time that this property has been before the board. The most important time, however, was in 2013 when the use variances were granted to allow the first 3 buildings on the property to be interconnected and to be used for New Horizons and all. At that time, the board granted the use variance and also granted the use variance that we would have less than 40,000 square feet in total on the property and that the buildings would be 5,000. The original approval had 5 buildings, 4 for 5,000 square feet and 1 for 7,500. That was changed to all 5 buildings being 5,000 square feet in 2015. So all of those things were done, and New Horizons did take occupancy of buildings 1 through 3. Two buildings being utilized for the training programs and the educational things that are involved with it, and one which is the building up closest to Route 33, being an administration building. Sometime in the last couple of years, on an administrative basis, Building 4, which is the other building that's up near Route 33, was approved to install an indoor pool for recreational, educational, and all kinds of related stuff to the whole autism, solely related to the autism center. That building has been constructed and is in place. We are now taking the final building, which was previously approved for a flex warehouse type of building, which is board for the order, and changing it from a warehouse to an administration building. What will actually happen is the old administration building will become part of an expanded program for the autism, which will not bring any more people or any more cars to the site. Simply will allow them to do individualized training, educational, and analysis purposes with their existing clients, much of which cannot be done when there's a whole bunch of people around. They need to have the privacy to do that. So that first building up near the front will be dedicated to those uses. The other two buildings that are already there will remain. The pool building that's built will remain. And the new administration building in the back will be 5,000 square feet. It is the exact same footprint that was originally approved for the warehouse building, except that we are doing away with the loading dock, or loading doors, I should say, in the back, and we're putting some access doors in the front. And of course, the floor plan will be different. So this is an expansion of the use variance. The entire site will now be utilized for the autism, for which the planning board in 2013 found that it was inherently beneficial use. And it has been as such. It is fully for that purpose. And this is simply the extension of it to building number 5. Okay, and that building becomes. In addition to that, there are a couple of very small things that are being constructed on site, which Lorelei Cotton will go through, that are again related to the programs of the Autism Center to enhance certain features of it. That will be 2 little storage buildings, an area where they can have a barbecue outside, and a small greenhouse for educational purposes, plants, flowers, and things of that nature.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You had made a statement a while ago about the planning board. This was the zoning board approval.
I'm sorry, you're right. It was the zoning board approval all the way. Look, it was a planning board approval initially, and then starting in 2013, it became a zoning board approval. Yes,
Right.
you're right.
Okay, my next question, do you have any witnesses?
I have Lorelei Cotton, who is engineer and planner, who will provide both the engineering and planning testimony.
Okay, let's go ahead and swear her in real quick, if you don't mind.
I will do that. Go ahead.
Mr. Tropoli, you mind swearing in Lorelei?
Not at all. Lorelei, raise your right hand, please. Right. Do you swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, and state your full name for the record, please.
Lorelei Cotton with F Engineering Associates Inc., Millstone Township, New Jersey.
Bill, can you place your credentials on the record, if you would?
Yes, I would. Please provide your credentials.
Yes, I graduated with a Bachelor of Civil Engineering in so long ago, I forget, 1977. I passed my professional engineering test and became a professional engineer in 1983, and I became a planner in 1986. I've worked at 6 different firms, last one was engineering for the past 26 years, of which I'm now a principal since 1999, and have appeared before both zoning and planning boards now, probably back as far as 1985 or 6.
we accept your credentials.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask a question though, I mean,
Yes.
we don't typically accept D1 use variance testimony from an engineer. I understand you have your planning license, but we typically require the applicants provide planning testimony from an AICP certified planner.
I was not aware of that being required, but this is simply an extension of the existing use to the fifth building. It's not that we're completely
Still a
redoing it.
D1 use variance, Bill. I mean, your approval was for specific buildings with uses in the other buildings, and, what this use is not permitted. So, I mean, I would defer back to the board, but, we have prevented other PEs who have taken their PP exam, are not an AICP, from providing use variance testimony in the past.
Mr. Tropoli,
Well, I can say, Mr. Chairman, that has been the case recently, that we have not permitted engineers to testify regardless of their obtaining the planning designation. I don't want to thwart Mr. Mayor's case, but Bill, what is your opinion on that? Again, Jen is right. We have very recently prevented planning testimony from engineers in B1 situations.
I know we
I was not aware, I was not aware of it, and I was not advised of it either as part of the review process as such, that was absolutely necessary. I am not aware of any other towns that require this, and I don't know if the land use law provides for it, to be honest with you.
I mean, from my perspective, that's fine, but, I'm not going to just, because it's there now, is not going to suffice. Like, this has to be actual planning testimony that meets the statute. And I'm not opposed to the use, but, I will tell you that there have been engineers who have had their planning license for 30 plus years and have testified in other municipalities in the state as a planner, and we have not accepted him for planning testimony. We have required the applicants to go out and get an AICP planner. We actually had an applicant take a break, bring Ms. Coffin out into the hallway. I saw her on the Zoom call earlier. Bring her up to speed on a case and bring her back and provide testimony because we were not allowing, use variance testimony from an engineer. So, I mean, I would defer to the board and to Mr. Tropoli, but that has been our practice, and it's been our practice for more than just a little while.
Let me make one more thing, and this again is somewhat different. This zoning board determined that the use that's involved here is an inherently beneficial use at a prior time when we got approval for the first three buildings as such. This is simply an adjunct, basically, of the same people, same client, same people running it as such. They're simply extending it to one additional building or enhanced service as such. So it's extending it to that rather than starting over again with something else.
I've got to defer to Mr. Tropoli on this at this point.
Is Allison Coffin on this evening?
Yes.
And one of the applicants?
Can you unmute her?
She was the original planner that testified in 2013. Bill, I understand your dilemma. I'm not prepared to disagree with Jen. My suggestion would be, if there's a way for you perhaps to take a brief recess, we have other matters, speak with Allison. I'm sure she'd recall this. You can place your engineering testimony on the record. Perhaps Allison can appear on your client's behalf, and probably would not take very long. I'm sure she would remember the application. I would request that we do it. I mean, yet we have the time tonight. Everybody is here. If there's a way for Eileen, for you perhaps to get Bill that information, if Bill is willing to do that. But I will agree with Jen. Mr. Chairman, do you have any further questions on that one?
Well, I totally agree. You know, I remember the case very well, but not only that, but the D1, that takes 5 votes, correct?
That's true. We only have 6 votes tonight.
That's what I'm saying, you know. So I would definitely reach out to Allison real quick and see, you know, if something could be worked out with that. We could go to the next case real quick and then come back to this one.
Well, first I need to be able to contact her, and I don't know where she is. But secondly, she is on the agenda tonight for another one of the other hearings.
Yeah, she's online.
I'm sure that Eileen could probably provide you a number.
I don't have her
reach her
number.
You don't?
I don't, but she is on the meeting here. I just
Try to call-
unmuted her if she wants to chime in. Allison, are you there?
Jen, do you have her number?
Yes, I'm here.
There's Allison.
Okay. Great.
Have you been
Laura,
listening?
I can email Lorelei my number.
Okay. Why don't you do you mind doing that?
Nope.
Okay.
Although I will say this is a little different than the previous situation. In the last situation, my father had reviewed that application and had been able to brief me on what the testimony he was going to give was. In this case, we have no knowledge of this application.
Oh, you don't?
No. I can talk to them and see how much information I can get quickly.
Okay.
Why don't we do that, Mr. Chairman? Why don't we put Allison in touch with Bill? If Allison feels comfortable this evening, we can recall the case. And Bill knows the case inside and out. I remember this from 2013. I'm sure we could have a conversation if Allison wishes to do that. I obviously know that you're here for another application. It would be your call, but it would be possibly a way to keep the application moving forward this evening.
I would like to do that. I'll try to reach out to Allison on the outside here, and then I'm sure she'd be able to do that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, with that, why don't we let the parties talk, and then we can move on
Okay.
to whatever we have else that's, you know, I know Mr. Pape is on.
Yes. Okay, you want to do the next case on the agenda?
Yes.
Well, I had, let's see. Ken, are you still there?
I am. This is Untitled Chapter.
Why did they take him before? They were supposed to take Todd next.
Ken, do you need to speak with me?
I do, Mr. Tropoli. I would very much appreciate that opportunity.
Okay. All right.
We could take before our application begins.
Mr. Pape, what applicant is yours? What case is yours? Christoph?
I'm the last one on your agenda this evening, Mr. Chair.
Christoph Roska is Todd Cohen's case.
Oh, okay.
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 Yes, Mr. Pape, if you'd like to speak with me, I can do that. Mr. Chairman, perhaps we should take a few-minute reset and just get our agenda back in order.
Okay, well, the next case is the Christoph case on our agenda.
Okay.
Eileen, let's take a five minute.
Okay, the board will now take a 5-minute recess. Be back at 8:30. The
Yes,
zoning
Mr.
board
Mayor.
is now reconvening.
Ms. Kaufman has agreed. We've sent her some materials to look at. She's agreed to provide some testimony for us regarding the planning portions on the use variance particularly. So I don't know what you want to do now. Go ahead, or you want to put us behind somebody else?
Well, I gotta swear, Allison in first.
Mr. Chairman, before we reconvene on the, on Mr. Mayor's matter, I believe we need to take a look at the third case on the calendar. During the break, I spoke with Mr. Pape, and he expressed concern regarding the lack of a full board. Mr. Pape, am I correct on that?
Yes, Mr. Tropoli, Mr. Chairman, we have two D2 variances to present to the board, as well as bulk variance and site plan. I think that both the board and the applicant would benefit with having a full board, and we would respectfully ask if the application could be continued to a future hearing date.
Okay. Eileen, do you have a date?
I suggested October 19th, 2020, which is one of our extra dates, and it would just be Mr. Pape's case on that evening.
Mr. Pape, do you have a problem with that date?
I do not. In fact, I would like to express gratitude to have that date made available to us. All of the witnesses who are with me this evening are listening. If anyone has an issue, could you send me a text? If anyone on our team has an issue with October 19th, could you send me a text at this time? If I don't get text, I'll tell the chairman that that date works for all of us.
Okay.
Looks like I'm not getting text, Mr. Manson.
Okay.
Procedurally, would the application be carried to that evening, Mr. Chair?
Yes. I will wait for the date and then we'll announce it.
It's October 19th, 2020.
No, I understand that, but he was waiting for text from me.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so
You're
much.
good? Okay, case number BA 1917, 6520 LLC will be carried to October 19th, 2020, 7:30 p.m. with no further notice.
Okay, Mr. Chair, to all board members, thank you for this evening. Appreciate that you'll carry us. We'll be prepared to proceed on that evening.
Sorry we couldn't get you on there.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. No issues at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pape.
Thank you, Mr. Pape. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what's your pleasure? Do you want to continue with Mr. Mayor's case if Ms. Kaufman's
Let's
ready?
go ahead.
Or do you want to?
Let's
Or
go
move
ahead
to
and continue with Mr. Mayor. Before we do that, I would like to ask Mr. Cohen a question, if we can, before we, resume, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cohen, do you have a planner for your case?
Give him 1 minute. He has to answer now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir, I got you.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Todd Cohen for the applicant, Christopher Abraska. I have a planner, but I don't know that he's going to planner that Jen would accept. We've had a brief discussion about it this evening. We have a D2 variance. Mr. DeFalco has the old type planner's license. I don't have the benefit of grabbing Ms. Coffin because she's very busy this evening. So I don't know. I'm thinking you might not get to me anyway at this rate, but that's my
why we're
first
having
comment.
this conversation.
So if you're not going to accept Mr. DeFalco, we definitely have to move it.
So I would suggest, and I mean, Todd, this is totally up to you, but I would suggest that if Mr. Mayor is comfortable that we proceed with his case, maybe we start with your case. I don't know how far we'll get, because I do know that there are definitely some engineering related issues that Charlie is going to bring up related to your application. So let's see how far we get, and then we can make a decision when we get to that point, because we may need to carry to a future date anyway.
Okay.
Okay,
So we'll hang out, I guess.
I just wanted to clarify that, and then Okay, Mr. Mayor, you want to proceed?
I would like to proceed, and in order to set the tone for the board, I would like to have Ms. Totten give you a very brief engineering report, because very few things change, but at least we'll take care of those items, and then if that'll lead into be able to.
That sounds good. We'll go through the engineering real quick.
Laura, do you want to proceed with the engineering stuff?
Yes, are we looking at displays or anything, or shall I just describe the?
If you will give us the plan number, Matt will pull it up on the screen.
Okay,
You really want this one?
yes, I don't see our rendering on the list of exhibits.
You don't see what?
The rendering we sent in?
Because it wasn't officially an exhibit yet. Hold on 1 minute.
Limited star archives. But the question is they're changing it to remind us of who can be a professional player.
Can you mute Todd?
I cannot hear anything.
Not sure what it is.
Todd.
Okay.
Mr. Tropoli, this has to be recognized as an exhibit and added to our list.
This is a rendering from the where is this? This is called site display.
This is going to be
And it's
exhibit
dated
A12.
3/20. I'm sorry, oh, A12, yes.
That's correct, A12.
Okay, so to your right on this display is Route 33. To the bottom of the display, probably off the screen, is Okerson Road. This is known as Lot 1.11, Block 169, and you had the circulation on this project is right in, right out off of Route 33, and in, out, both directions off Okerson. Currently, under existing conditions, their first 44 buildings are constructed. The stormwater management system is fully constructed, all pipes, inlets, etc. There are 2 basins. The landscaping, the lighting, the septic system, the potable well, the dumpster enclosure for the dumpster with solid waste and recycling, and all other utility connections are installed. And other improvements in accordance with the site plan approval from 2013 are in place. The pad site for the 5th building is located on this exhibit, the orange building to the left. And right now, it's being used as a picnic area. The proposal is to build the 5th building in the pad site, which is the same size as the other 4 buildings. The original building from the approval in 2013 had loading docks to the left side of the building, as well as an access drive off of the circulation. There are no loading docks proposed, and the access drive has been removed. There's also, as was previously mentioned, a greenhouse that'll be close to building 4, which is the pool building that's close to Route 33 in the center of the drawing. That big green area next to building 4 contains the septic system to the left, and then part of it will be used for the barbecue picnic area, which is the larger square, and the greenhouse is the smaller rectangle. It is a kit and not permanent in nature.
Oh, actually, this building here is that correct?
That's correct.
So,
Correct. The parking that is located in front of the proposed building, it was approved as part of the original preliminary and final major subdivision, I'm sorry, site plan, that is now being proposed to be constructed. We have, and additionally, there'll be some more landscaping around the foundation of this plan, which you can see with the blow up on the right-hand side of this drawing. See, we have Monmouth County Health Department has reaffirmed that the existing septic system is adequate for this proposal. Additionally, Monmouth County Planning Board has affirmed that this has final approval still, and they don't have any interest in any kind of other requirement. Freehold Soil Conservation District certification is still in effect, and there's no changes. There's no impact on the drainage because in reality, the impervious cover is being reduced. With regard to the lighting, that was probably the most significant item under the existing conditions. After this 3 buildings were put into use, it was found that the area of pickup, which is behind or above building number 3 that's in the row there, was not bright enough. So all of the fixtures were changed out to be LEDs, and when they are all on, they exceed the lighting that was originally approved. There was a waiver granted for that lighting. What the applicant, and we submitted an as-built plan to that effect, what the applicant has agreed to do is to put motion sensors on the building mounted lights that will go off, turn off 45 minutes after there's no movement, and put the pole mounted lights on a timer to turn them off an hour after the last person leaves, which when I go through the operations, you'll understand that that's somewhere between 6 and 7 at night at the absolute latest. So with regard to the operations, which also goes to the parking, there are currently 11 staff members. There could potentially be one more. There are generally 35 to 40 people who assist with the student client people. There are up to 60 or 65 students, their clients, and their age is 18 or above. They arrive in vans, they're picked up by vans, except for 2 people right now who can't be in such a small enclosed space with so many people. Yeah, and it's the staff who drive the van. Some of the staff members go to group homes where they park their vehicles, and they are picked up along with the clients and the students. So basically, if every staff member and every administrator were to drive a car, plus then no student whatsoever ever drive, plus the person who is the lifeguard at the pool, you would have a total of 70 vehicles on site. But that does not happen. Most of the people who are the staff members taking care of the students, they do not come to the site in their own vehicle. And lastly, the students are broken into 2 shifts. The first shift in the morning, they are going to be incorporated into the community. So they go with their staff members to a job. So they're not there. So about 30 of them are not there along with their staff. And the others do come in to go to school. At noon time or thereabouts, it switches between 11:30, I think, and 12:30. The people that are on the site leave, and go out and into the community to jobs. And the people who are out in the community, they come in for their training and recreational activities. So in reality, there are much fewer cars than there are parking spaces. There are 95 parking spaces available, and there's much less than 70 potential people on site, and that actually includes 5 visitors. The hours are from, I think, 8:30 until 5:30. Most of the students leave at 3. If we were not in COVID time, there is a group that come in from the high schools for a couple of hours, and so everybody is gone between 6 and 7 p.m. at night. Well, yeah, no later than that, absolutely. And it's only 5 days a week. There's nothing that happens on this site on the weekends or at night.
Real quick, Charlie, you want to step in?
Yeah, can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so just a couple quick questions on it. There was a lot of stuff that was talked about there, so I just want to make sure I'm right. So, as far as the parking, are there any type of like graduation type of ceremonies or large gatherings where there would be more than your 5 visitors on the site, or is it all just? Okay. And then I just want to make sure that I had the number right. So you said there's 11 to 12 staff members that are going to be admin that are in the now building 5 that's proposed. You have 40 to 45 assistant employees, and then 5 visitors, so like approximately a maximum of 65 to 70, like at full capacity on site?
Yes. It's
Okay.
It's 35 to 40 staff with 12 if they hire another person, admin people. And then there's 1 pool person, 5 visitors.
Okay. Sorry, I was breaking up when you gave it the original time. I apologize if I had that incorrect. So, and then I think in the operational statement you guys provided too, you said with some of the vans and some of the employees actually will drive their cars to the group homes, pick up the van, pick up the clients and bring them to the site, so they're not actually parking on the site. Is that accurate?
Yes.
If I may, still there, I wrote up the operation statement from the interview with Samir Patel, who was here and got called out because there's a fire in one of their homes that these people live in, and he had to go there to make sure everything was okay. But basically, yeah, what happens is they've got 12 vans. Okay, they used to have 20 in the original thing, but they have 12. A driver from the center itself goes to one of the houses, picks up as many people as is there who are coming to the place, and several of the other staff members also leave their cars there and come in to be sure to provide additional security. So, as an example, in a van that's a 12-person van as such, you may very well have 4 staff members and 8 clients as such. And most of them, like, there's nothing that's larger than a 12-passenger van. Some of them are a little smaller. But basically what happens, that's why the staff members' cars aren't on site. They actually stay at the houses because they're brought back at the end of the day. Those staff members who do not do that come directly to the site in their own cars, but that's like 8 or 10 people max.
Okay, so worst case scenario, if they weren't going to the pick people up and pick up the vans and they were just coming straight to the site, you'd have a maximum of 70 people, right?
Yeah, that maximum is never attained. Actually, if you go out there, you'll see that it never runs over 40 because,
Gotcha.
again,
Okay.
the session thing is also.
So what I would say, Mr. Chairman, is I take no exception to the granting of a waiver for the parking based on their testimony on that. I just wanted to get it on the record. Obviously, we're approving this use for this specific tenant, so it should a separate user come in with the same kind of, autism use. I just want to make sure we have a baseline for, how the site has operated so that, it makes it easier for Matt to determine whether they need to come back to the board for, for an amended approval. And then, Bill, obviously, you made mention to the administrative approval for the pool in building number 4. That's solely occupied by New Horizon, right? It's
That's
pretty much
correct.
no outside users or
No,
anything like that. Okay. So what I would just say, Mr. Chairman, I take no issue to that. I would just say, if there were ever a need for, or a desire for a separate tenant to come into that use, I would say it would trigger amended site plan approval. It's a different sole user for that building. If they're using it with a pool for personal training, is going to generate different traffic to the site than as opposed to what they're currently proposing. With regard to the lighting, I take no exception. I think it's in line with what was previously proposed. Obviously, I think they've upgraded to LED lighting, and we're seeing a lot of these issues where we're having to grant variances for our waivers for exceeding the maximum average light intensity. I would take no exception to it. The only comment I would have is the plan that was provided talked about the light intensity of the bulbs, 5,000 K. If there's the ability for the new lights to be 3,000 or 4,000 K, it's a yellower light, which is going to be easier for drivers coming through the site and also by the site at nighttime hours. And then obviously the condition with the lights being on a timer, I think also helps that situation. You have any issue with that?
I'm sorry, I would point out that the existing lights on the buildings themselves are on a motion basis, detector basis anyway. So even though they have the capacity of all being on, it only would be if there was movement in front of them that would occur.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm really just talking about the fixtures themselves, and it's something that we can work out, administratively with if a revised plan is submitted during resolution compliance with the board rule favorably. I will say there was mention about Monmouth County Board of Health and the septic system being suitable for the use. They did issue in their memo that they never gave like a certificate of acceptance for the pool. So I just make sure that you guys, obviously, as a condition, have to satisfy Monmouth County Board of Health with that.
We agree.
Let me just see if I got anything else shorthand, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. Let me look at my notes here. Just two little comments with the site plan. So obviously, like Lorelei mentioned, building number 5 to the south, there was a prior loading zone that was supposed to be put there. The applicant's now proposing 2 sheds and some walkways. I would suggest that the applicant revise the landscaping plan to add some additional landscaping buffering along the south line there. I'd also say they're proposing a concrete walk, but it's not clearly delineated as an ADA ramp. I think when the site was originally laid out, you had 5 different flex spaces where you envisioned probably separate tenants. Now you have, 5 buildings with 1 tenant. So just to the west of the building, there's a concrete walkway. It's just not clearly defined as an ADA ramp. I would ask that it be shown appropriately as such.
We agree.
And that's pretty much all I have, Mr. Chairman. There's some outside agency stuff. I know the fire application in 2013, the applicant was required to get like a letter of no interest from DOT. I would say, based on the fact that they're now using all 5 buildings on the site, I would say that we should get an updated letter of no interest from DOT. You have any issue with that, Mr. Mayor?
I would request that we not have to go through that with them because we're not adding any people or any vehicles by the addition of this 5th building as such. There's no change. Everybody is already on site. So we're not providing any more traffic.
So you're saying with the increased usage of building number 5, you're not increasing any trips from the site?
No, all the people who would be utilizing building 5 are already on site. They're part of the 65 clients, and the administration building is just moving from one building to the other, so they're still there.
Okay. So then building number 1, which is going to be repurposed, how many people are you envisioning using that building at a time?
It depends as to the use of the building, but basically, as it was stated in the operations statement, this is going to be used for testing people, for doing individual educational things, for evaluation purposes. They can't do that in the buildings where everybody else is congregating. So the building, that building will be utilized for that purpose, but it's the same people doing the job and the same clients that are there.
Okay, so it's no additional employees to the site is what you're saying then?
No,
Someone's
it's just
currently
an
operating.
enhancement of the services, that's what it is.
Okay. Based on that, Mr. Chairman, I would say I take no exception to the granting of relief for that then. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, at this time.
Okay. I'm gonna open it to my board members. One
Mr.
by
Chair,
one.
I just have a couple questions if you don't mind.
Oh, for engineering or planning?
Yeah, I was struggling to hear because the feed breaks up, so I just need some clarification on a couple things.
Okay,
So, Ms. Totten, you said this is for students 18 years of age and older, or 8?
18 adults.
18.
It's
So,
all
okay,
adults.
and then you cut out with respect to the start time. I have 5:30 p.m. is the end of, I guess, instruction, but that everyone is typically gone off the site by 6 to 7 p.m., but I didn't catch the start time.
Okay, let me just repeat that again. It's 8:30 till 3 with 2 sessions. When we're not in COVID times, there have been students from the high school that come as an after-school program for a couple of hours. And they're gone by 5. Sometimes the staff members are there a slight bit longer than that. So I was trying to be conservative and saying everybody is totally gone by 7 p.m.
Okay.
It's really more like 6 p.m. I was being very conservative.
That's fine. I just couldn't hear you in the beginning. And then the only other thing I have is that on your plans, behind building 5 are 2 storage sheds. What are you going to use those for?
Those are for putting maintenance items in, and also chairs and so on for the barbecue area.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Real
quick.
We're looking at, there is on the right is an area of improvement detail, and it shows proposed landscaping for building 5. I don't know if you've seen that because it was sort of cut off on the previous thing, but it's on the same sheet.
Yeah, okay.
I think, Mr. Mayor, what Charlie was asking for right now, based on the landscaping plan, it appears that there's landscaping in and around the basin, but I think what the request was to extend the landscaping, I guess, to a little bit to the north, to where it kind of intersects with that access drive, so you're screening also like those shed areas as well.
Yeah, no, we agree that we will do that. We do.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any questions from the board members of the engineering section? Mr. O'Donnell,
This time,
Mr. Murphy,
No comment. I'm fine.
okay, Mr. Orozco. Do you have any questions of the engineer? Mr. Orozco?
He's muted, can you? Oh. Mr. Orozco, do you have any comments or questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Cantor,
No questions.
Mr. Hughes?
No, sir, I'm good.
The only thing that I had a question on is the circulation. None of that has changed, has it?
That is correct.
None of the
Okay.
site circulation is changing, is it?
No, it is not changing.
Okay. That was my only question.
Yeah,
Okay,
Mr. Chair, just to add to that, they did receive a waiver the last time they were around for the circulation aisle width from 30 feet to 25 feet. So it is consistent with the prior approval.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that question. Okay. Uh, Mr. Mayor, you want to get Miss Allison sworn in here, Mr. Tropoli?
Sure.
Okay, Allison, raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you'll give this evening be the truth, the whole truth, and but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Yes, and please state your name and make your credentials on the record, if you would, please.
Allison Coffin, Coffin. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, and I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you.
You've had at least a half hour now to be able to review the plans.
Well, half an hour, or you could look at it as 7 years since I was part of the 2013 application.
Okay, all right. And again, as we've indicated by the direct testimony, that this is an extension of the use by the Autism Center, by New Horizons, into this 5th building, which previously had been approved as a flex building as such. Would you please provide the proofs for this justification for this, what has already been deemed by the board to be an inherently beneficial use, the 5th building?
Yes, so the property is in the SED, Special Economic District, and that does not permit a use such as this, which is a unique use. When the board granted its original approval in 2013, it found that this use was inherently beneficial, which it remains today, but the inclusion of 2 more buildings into the use, where it was originally approved to have the use in 3 buildings with the other 2 buildings as flex space, we're now eliminating the flex use and putting the New Horizons use into all 5 buildings. It makes sense to revisit those 4 prongs of the SECA test to make sure that there's no further detriment caused by occupying the full site with this use. So looking at the SECA test, the first prong of the criteria for inherently beneficial use is to look at the magnitude of the use. And in this case, it services 65 students plus, once COVID is over, local high school students can come after school hours. So there is a significant benefit to the use. The second prong is to look at the detrimental effects. Now, in this case, I think that the occupancy of this use by all 5 buildings on the site actually eliminates a potential detriment. When we first considered this use in 2013, one of the concerns the board had was the potential for there being a conflict between the flex space use on the site and the New Horizons Autism Center. And while the circulation was set up to make sure that there was no impact or conflict between those uses, by eliminating the flex space use in the 2 buildings and having New Horizons occupy the entire site, we really do eliminate the potential for any conflict between the uses. So the expansion of the use into all 5 buildings, in my opinion, does not have any detrimental effect. Rather, it goes to the third prong of the SECA test, which is mitigation. In this case, the applicant is mitigating the potential impact that had existed on the site, and there's no new detriment. The use itself is not expanding in terms of the number of students or the number of staff. It's just eliminating an additional use on the site. And the last prong for SECA is to balance whether or not, despite any attempts to mitigate, there's still a substantial detriment to the use. And in this case, there's no detriment that outweighs the benefit, and the board can grant the D1 use variance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jennifer?
I don't disagree. I think that eliminating 2 uses that may or may not be considered compatible and utilizing the site in its entirety for this one use is a benefit. And then coupled with the fact that not only are they using it just for the one use, but they're not expanding the number of students, the number of employees, the number of cars, trips, etc. That all remains the same as it was when they were occupying the 3 buildings. Again, I think is a benefit, because with the flex space use, there had the potential to be some in and out traffic that we're not going to see now as the whole site is being utilized by the autism center. So I do agree with the testimony. I think the use remains inherently beneficial, and I feel like on balance that, you know, they meet the requirements under the SICA test.
Okay. Any questions from the board members? Mr. Martin?
Hold on one second, Mr. Chair. We have to unmute everyone.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Wendell, I do have one more item that I think that they're going to need to address at some point, which is the architecture. I know that the 4 buildings were constructed and that you're constructing an additional building, but the buildings, even the existing buildings, don't meet our architectural standards, and the new building is consistent with the old building. So I would need to hear some testimony with respect to, you know, maybe Ms. Totten can discuss how what the proposal is, and you know, the waiver that they need is identified in our letter.
Thank you, we will do that.
Yes. So, as you stated so well, there are 4 buildings that are constructed. There are 2 styles of buildings. The administrative building has, they all look the same in terms of color. They have the wide green band in the middle and the beige. Yeah, I don't have an architectural rendering there we can look at. I think it's, we sent in some additional photos, but the one on record is A8.
You gotta go to the document distribution. Yeah, A8. No, that's the resolution, that ain't it. Hold on. She wants photographed. Building D currently on site. No.
We had filed some additional ones on Friday as such. I was hoping that you had them available because they show the whole site.
You can go ahead, Ms. Totten.
Okay, so there are 2 colors with a green band in the middle. The green band contains the windows. In some of them, the windows are smaller and higher. In the office buildings, they're lower and larger. So building 1 closest, the first building closest to Route 33 is an administrative building, and that one is what the new building, the 5th building, would look like. The 2nd and 3rd buildings look more similar, and the 4th building look more similar to each other. They have slightly smaller windows. It will be the same look. It is, while the existing buildings do not meet the architectural standards, to introduce into a set of buildings in its own commercial park, or commercial looking park, I should say, because it's not a commercial park, would introduce something that doesn't fit. And it is my opinion that the detriments of having a dissimilar building that meets the ordinance rather than one that is matches the other 4 buildings already on site would be much more beneficial and would allow the board, and the board can grant this variance because of the unique situation wherein the buildings are, 4 of the buildings are existing, and the 5th one should match the ones that are there now.
Lorelei, is there any difference in the building caused by its location versus the other 4 buildings?
Yes, this building is close to the edge of the existing detention basin, and the grass slopes away there, so there will be some exposed foundation more than on the other existing buildings, and the plan is to put in a stone-like veneer on the foundation so that it's more attractive. So with those 2 items, I think that the benefits of allowing this variance from the,
It's a waiver. It's not a variance. It's just a waiver.
a difference, a waiver from the
Yeah.
architectural standards is appropriate in this case, and because it's specifically for the site and the building is going to match those existing buildings, that it can be granted without detriment to the zone and zone plan.
So is the architecture that you just described with some additional amenities or at the foundation, is that something that we have? Because I don't have that yet. Is that something you can provide to us?
Yes, we will provide you with a colored rendering. We didn't have enough time to get it in for this.
That's fine, but I just want to make sure I have it in the file, that's all.
No, we'll have it. We'll have it within shortly.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, as you know, I usually am pretty particular when it comes to architecture, and in this particular circumstance, given the fact that 4 of the 5 buildings are up and operational, and this 5th building is intended to fit in with this kind of business park feel, I would take no exception to the waiver being granted in this particular instance. Typically, we would like to see a little bit more vertical break in the building as opposed to just a horizontal band. But again, those 4 buildings are there, and the 5th building is intended to be cohesive. So, in that particular instance, I would say that, I would take no exception if the board were to grant that waiver. And there are actually 4 or 3 sections of that architectural standard 188-228, and it's B, C, and D of that section that they would need relief from.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martin, do you have any questions? Copy.
No, sir.
Mr. Roscoe,
No. That's okay.
Mr. O'Donnell,
No, it seems to me everything is covered.
Mr. Hughes,
Yeah, I agree with Mr. O'Donnell. I'm satisfied with what I've heard.
Mr. Cantor.
No questions.
Okay, neither do I, and I want to thank Allison for stepping up there. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open to public. I need a motion to open to public.
I'll make a motion to open the public.
Motion
Mr.
to open the public.
Motion by Mr. Hughes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Martin.
Cantor.
Cantor. Okay, that's why I asked that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, Eileen, do you want to announce that for the public?
For any member of the public who's watching the video, we are now putting up a display with the phone number. If you have any questions on this applicant, you can call in. You will need to put a meeting code and a PIN code in, and we will take you as you call in. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to give it about 5 minutes for them to call in and see if we got any members of the public wish to ask a question or make a comment.
Okay.
Eileen, are you getting any response?
No, no one has called in.
Anybody from the public online?
No, there's no one from the public online either.
Mr. Tropoli, can we close the public at this time?
I agree, Mr. Chair.
Okay, can I have a motion to close public?
I'd like to make a motion to close to the public. We've given adequate time to close.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Rumko, correct?
Yes.
Orozco, yes.
Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Real quick, Jim, do you have Sherry's letter?
I do. Phil, do you have her letter? It was dated June 17th.
Yes.
So I would just ask, I know she's not here, but there are like 4 items in her letter, just like technical comments on the plans. I would just ask that do you have any issues with complying with that?
I did have an opportunity to review that. We're in agreement with that. That's no problem.
Okay, great.
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
Thanks.
would you like to have a closing statement?
I think we've beaten this to death already. It's really a very simple thing. This is an amended site plan to allow the building size to be used as it is. I think we're simply extending the use variance, and that is really the sum and substance of it to an operation that is a necessary operation, an inherently beneficial use that the town has been proud of, and I think this will even be more permanent.
Okay, any further questions from our professionals?
Mr. Chair, just one quick thing. I just want to say, obviously with the application, they're eliminating the flex space, so if there ever was a desire to change back in the future, they'd have to come back to the board for amended site plan and then also for use variance approval.
Okay.
Just as a matter of clarity.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve this application based on the fact that the people and the amount of people that'll be there remains the same. Taking into consideration the request for some landscaping around the shed and have that taken care of with the hours 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and the lighting changes and also the grant the waiver for the architecture. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Mr. Hughes, do you want to amend that? I think the hours of operation she had stated was like 6:30 or 7, somewhere near.
Okay. My apologies. I thought I heard 8:30, but yeah, whatever was being put on.
We're cleared out of there by 6 o'clock, Frank.
Right, and Mr. Chair or Mr. Mayor, I did not hear the days of the week that the operation will occur. Monday through Friday?
It is only Monday through Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, have a motion by Mr. Hughes with the amendment. I need a second.
Second.
Who's second? Mr. Cantor?
Correct.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Cantor. We have a roll call, Eileen.
Yes, you may. Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mr. Cantor?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Good luck, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Allison.
Okay, Eileen, we're going to take a 5. I've sat in this hard chair for too long.
Okay, the board's going to take a 5-minute recess. They'll be back at 9:30.
We'll be right with you.
The zoning board will now reconvene.
Okay, case number BA 1924. Christoph Razak,
Raska.
Raska. Okay, it's a use variance expansion of 2 existing single-family dwellings on 1 lot. Applicant Christoph Raska as applicant and owner seeking a use variance approval for construction of an addition and alteration to 2 separate single-family dwellings, whereas only 1 principal structure is permitted on the lot. The applicant is proposing second story on building A with the portico covering existing concrete patio area and a pool to the north of the building and new fence. The garage on building B is proposed to be altered to a family room with the new access point being constructed from the single-family dwelling to proposed family rooms and premises known as Lot 42, Lot 26, 1001 Lakewood Farmingdale Road. Expiration date September 15, 20. Mr. Cole.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Todd Cohen. I'm the attorney for the applicant, Christoph Raska. In addition to your little brief summary there, the application tonight does involve a use variance for the addition and alterations to 2 existing single dwellings, as only 1 principal dwelling is permitted on the property. While there's a history to this site, my client purchased the property about 2.5 years ago, April of 2018, but has already made some large improvements to the property and has been cleaning up the site. His plan is to complete the renovations if the approvals are granted this evening to both homes and reside in the larger home himself. Mr. DeFalco, our engineer and hopefully planner, will be able to show you that both structures were there in the early 1950s. It started as a house and a barn. Around the late 60s, 1970, the barn was converted to a house. And I do believe that the 2 structures do predate the zoning ordinance of 1974. We are therefore seeking the expansion of a legally created pre-existing non-conforming use. There's also a history of violations on the property, which best I could tell from 1990 to 2002, 2003. And then apparently nothing seemed to have happened to the property after that. It's basically been sitting in disrepair. And if you've gone by the property, you can see the condition that it's in today. Mr. DeFalco will be testifying this evening. Even though we did not prepare the plans, we had used an older survey. We also had that survey updated by the surveyor, Mr. Van Huss, in June of 2019. There were also 3 photographs that we submitted at the end of last week, which Eileen had to be able to put up when we asked for, that will describe the site, the present conditions, and also before my client purchased it and what it looks like today. My client is also online and may be able to answer some questions down the road, so we might want to swear him in when we swear in Mr. DeFalco.
Right.
That's fine, Todd. I just want to point out that, as you heard in the previous case, the chairman's already made a ruling regarding who can and who can't testify as a planner. And you present Mr. DeFalco solely as an engineer this evening. If you are planning on presenting him as a planner, I think the chairman's ruling from the prior case would affect your case as well.
Well, I guess I could put up the same objections as Mr. Mayor, but I'd probably get the same answers. So I'll accept the board's ruling, and we'll see if we can proceed tonight with at least the testimony so you understand what we're trying to do. We can address some of the engineering issues that are raised in Charles's letter. and hopefully get a short date back so I can grab a planner that you'll accept for the testimony on a D2 variant.
Fair enough. Well, we'll swear the witnesses in now, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Right. Will the applicant and Mr. DeFalco please raise your right hand? You swear that the testimony you'll give this evening be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you? Yes?
Hold on one second, they may be muted.
Oh. I don't know. I guess they... Okay. Can everyone hear me now?
I see my client's got his hand raised.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Frozen to me.
Right. Did you hear the oath before? Let me just re-administer it. You swear the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
So help me God, yes, I do.
Yes.
Thank you. Witnesses are sworn, Mr. Chair. Can you state, Mr. Falco,
Before we start, there was also...
let's get the names on the record first. Would the applicant state his name, please?
Chris, state your name.
Christopher Zaka?
Thank you. And Mr. DeFalco, please.
Richard DeFalco.
Thank you. All sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank
Cole,
you. There would be, just for the record, there were also elevations and architecturals that were submitted with the application by an ML Architecture LLC, I believe. We have those online as well. Richard, would you please put your engineering and professional qualifications on the record, educational professionals and engineers?
Yeah, sure. A graduate of Rutgers University, licensed as a professional engineer in 1977. Been practicing since then. I own JKR Engineering, civil engineering company. I've testified before Howell's boards, both zoning and planning, dozens of times since the early 80s. And I've been accepted previously in other municipalities, also in Superior Court and the Freehold.
we accept your credentials, Mr. DeFalco. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rich, you've had an opportunity to review the material that's been submitted, and you've had an opportunity to review Mr. Cunliffe's letter of May 6th, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Excuse me, Mr. Cohen, one second. If Mr. DeFalco wants us to put up any of those exhibits, just let us know and we'll move them on before he talks about them, okay?
Okay, Rich, is there anything you want up before you begin?
I guess we could start, well, you want to go through the engineering comments and then see where we go after that, because the rest of it's really planning stuff.
Yeah, why don't you give the board outline of what we're doing and where the property is, what's around, we could maybe use the area that we...
All right, so Eileen is 112 Neighborhood View. PDF
1
that
second.
was sent.
Richard, once that up, would you please identify it for the plan with that,
And then we have to add it to the exhibit list.
So that'll be A7.
Yes.
All right, so this is an aerial view of the neighborhood. The little blue dot at the center is the, I guess, the edge of the property pretty much. The site in question are the two homes to the left of that blue dot. The physical feature of the large circular little pond that's at the bottom of the screen is on the applicant's property. And the roadway in front is Lakewood Farmingdale Road. The intersection of Oak Glen Road is to the north slightly. This map is rotated, by the way, so it's running like 90 degrees from north. But Oak Glen Road is at the top of the map. The county realigned that roadway. The realignment. Directly across the street is a deli and a grill. I think it's Bob's Deli and Grill, and a parking lot for the commercial use. Directly across the street is the ARE2 zone, but that deli is in that zone. To the right of Oak Glen Road is the SED zone. and there are commercial uses and buildings that are at the corner of Oak Glen and Lakewood Farmingdale Road. Further to the west along Oak Glen Road, there's the residential uses on the opposite side of the road. On our side of the street, directly adjacent to us to the west, is what I would call used to be a non-residential use with lots of trucks and cars and parts and things strewn all over the property. Hard to see in that area, but each of those little blocks is either a car, a van, a truck, or a trailer, and there's probably 5 or 6 dozen of them on the property. Our property is pretty clean. You can see the driveway between the two homes. There is a white travel trailer parked behind the home. There is the remnants of old concrete patios and walkways that existed when my client bought the property about 2.5 years ago. You can see along Lakewood Farmingdale Road, there's an evergreen buffer between the home and the pavement. There are a mixture of, I'd say, 15 to 20 foot tall evergreen trees that are along the road right of way. The access to the house to the west is a single driveway near the striped portion of Lakewood Farmingdale Road, and the entrance to the larger home, which has the brown roof, is pretty much across from the parking lot for the deli across the street. So it's a concrete and asphalt driveway throughout. There is a small, about a 4-foot wide asphalt walkway around the pond, and this is a current aerial. I looked at the historical aerials, and one of Charlie's questions was, when were the impervious improvements installed? It looks like they were in place as they are today in 2007. And I think one of his questions was, if it was 2007, they may be grandfathered from the impervious cover standards in the zone. So I believe that they were installed before 2007 if they appeared in the 2007 photograph. It looks like somewhere probably the early 2000s that they were installed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in real quick. So, what Mr. Falco stated, obviously, if a lot has existed prior to 2007, it might be grandfathered from like the impervious coverage requirements in the zone. My letter also has some questions, and I have some concerns regarding that pond on the property. Tarpon Brook actually passes right through that pond, which is a Category 1 water, and our ordinance requires a 300-foot riparian buffer from that stream, from that water body, which pretty much the 300-foot takes you all the way to the property frontage and the roadway. And there are some exemptions in the ordinance for development, redevelopment, alteration of single-family dwellings within a riparian buffer, as long as the impervious area is less than a quarter acre. So it's 10,000 square feet and change. There's, from what I'm looking at historic aerials and the site plan, there's Mr. DeFalco mentioned the asphalt walkway around the pond, but there's also an asphalt driveway on the south side of the pond that leads to a separate structure south of the pond. There's, the driveway which kind of loops behind building A and then goes west to an asphalt parking area. The applicant's asking for a variance for impervious coverage of 5.69%. Obviously, they say we're grandfathered, but 5.69% doesn't seem like a large area. But when you take into factor that it's a 10-acre lot, we're talking about almost 25,000 square feet of impervious area, for this lot. So, for me and for the board, I would feel a lot more comfortable regarding the history of the property if the applicant had an environmental professional look at the site and, made a recommendation to the board, that the property is in good standing with any environmental regulations. in regards to repairing any wetlands that might be on the site. You know, it's
Charlie, does that come into play, that regulation, even if we're not adding any additional impervious cover?
so you are
And the
adding
impervious cover has been
coverage.
there since 1990 something?
Well, so do you have a survey that shows, or an area that shows all this asphalt's been there since 1990? The
I think
parking
we
area.
have, and Rich can maybe add this, I believe we have some historical areas that show that it was not there before 1986, but it was there after 1995. Rich, am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, and in 1995, there was the beginning of some of that asphalt that you see today, and by 2007, all of that asphalt was installed. So,
And there's no record of any permits that were obtained.
Yeah.
That
So
I-
I mean, Mr. Chairman, my recommendation to the board would be is, you know, they're saying on the plan that there's no increase in impervious area. Looking at the plan that's been provided, there's a portico which extends beyond some of the limits of the patio and concrete apron on the side of the building. They're also adding an addition for Building B, linking the garage to the frame dwelling. So in my eyes, there's certainly an increase in impervious area. Being that they're already over that quarter, the garage for Building B, my apologies. So there's a one-story addition that you have between the two there.
No,
I
No,
don't
the
have
garage
anything
is being converted as part of the dwelling unit Building B, and frame dwelling A is just going up a story.
frame.
Ty, if I could just
connecting the two.
interject, you know, the stormwater management regulations are dated 2004. And so improvements like
I'm sorry, Dan, I couldn't hear you.
2007. What?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said in the beginning.
Well, the stormwater management regulations came into effect in 2004. So I don't know what, you know, in terms of what was out there at that point versus what was increased between 04 and 07. But I do, you know, I do think that it's something that we're going to have to figure out. Because, you know, improvements that were done without approvals that date back, you know, now we're talking several years, 13 years ago, but those stormwater regs came in 3 years prior to that. And I don't know if there's documentation that shows that those improvements were there prior to those stormwater management regs being adopted. So I think, you know, just something that, you know, Charlie's going to have to feel comfortable with moving forward. We've had other cases in other areas of town where, you know, improvements have been made on sites without approvals from the town that date back 20 years, and it's difficult, but we have to figure it out because ultimately the town is responsible for the stormwater management of properties. So it's something that, you know, we've been taking very seriously, and Charlie has been very diligent in making sure that anything that was done out here, or not just here, but anywhere, addresses to his satisfaction the stormwater management regulations.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, our repair and buffer ordinance was amended in 2004, so there was a prior iteration of that, obviously, before that. But, you know, at least since 2004, there's been the repair and buffer. And like I said, there is an exemption for single-family dwellings if it's under a quarter of an acre of impervious area within the buffer, but just going based off the, you know, 5.69%, you know, we're at least 10,000 above that. So,
Charlie, is that new impervious or is this?
So the way I read it, sorry, it's breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry, is that new impervious or existing impervious?
So I read that as total impervious surface. So it doesn't differentiate between additional. It's just total impervious surface.
But if the impervious was there prior to Howell's ordinance,
All right, can we hang on? Who's sawing some wood in the background?
Yeah, just mute everybody right now. Okay.
Better?
Go ahead. Mr. McBell.
I had a question.
Mr. Cohen, Mr. Cohen, Charlie, and Jen.
So, Mr. Chairman, to answer Rich's question, the way that I read it, it's section 188-4, 3C. It's where a riparian buffer easement has not been recorded on a residential property. So riparian buffer easement would be, it's been recorded and it's on the tax map of Howell shown as a conservation easement, which this is not, at least from what I can see. But you're exempted, you have the right to develop, redevelop, or alter a single-family home and any appurtenances where, as long as the improvements within the buffer are less than 10,890 square feet. So that's any redevelopment, any addition of impervious surface. The total impervious surface has got to be less than a quarter of an acre. So.
All right, so to get back to Mr. Cohen's point, if we added the second-story addition above the first story and don't go outside the footprint, would that be exempt from that calculation?
So you're saying you were eliminating the portico?
I don't know where the portico is on your plan. I looked at it, I didn't see a portico. But the second floor?
Yes. So you have a second story addition, so you're adding a little portion to the northeast corner of the property, and what I've shown on my aerial, that's an existing concrete patio, but then you also have a portico which overhangs the patio to the north and to the east, and a portion of that overhangs beyond the concrete patio along the north and the east side. So the northeast corner of the portico extends beyond any impervious area. But above and beyond that, there's a lot of asphalt, like I said, around the pond, behind building A, parking area, driveways that, I look at areas that I don't see existing back to 2002. And, I'm just concerned from the board's perspective with granting approval. I understand you're just trying to add an addition onto the building, but we have to look at this property and the history of the property. And, any approval that they grant is going to go with the property, in perpetuity. So, I just want to make sure that the board is, if they're going to rule favorably on this application, they're not causing any issues from an environmental perspective.
If we were to remove impervious coverage for whatever, if the portico is over by whatever square footage, we're talking about a small number, 50 square feet, 100 square feet.
Which I think he's not just talking about the portico, he's talking about the pavement that's on the property that was put there at some point in the past without approvals.
Charlie, you're talking about anything over 10,890 square feet or whatever.
It's not simply just the addition, it's the other improvements that are on the site.
Total impervious coverage.
Correct.
But if a lot of it's been there since 1970, are we talking about that as well? Or just the stuff in the 2000s?
Rich, you keep mentioning these aerials. You look back in an aerial of 95. Do you have any of these aerials that you can present to the board so we can look at?
Not tonight. No. This came about late, so I don't have those aerials. But it's an online service. But we can get those to the board that shows the photographs.
Yeah, we got to have the history, and we need to time date that history also.
Yeah, so what I would say, Mr. Chairman, if they can show that it predates the ordinance and any regulations from DEP as far as riparian buffers, then it might be grandfathered and exempted. But anything after that is what I'm concerned with.
Exactly. But we have to have it for the record. We have to have it on record so we know exactly where we are and what predated and what didn't predate.
I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not sure how much more we can do this evening if we can't present plenty testimony, and we've got this issue where we're stuck on an environmental issue. I would like to point out that, we do have a situation, and I'm not pleading our case here, but we do have a situation where you have an applicant coming in and attempting to take a property that's in total disrepair, that he had nothing to do with the previous violations and nothing to do with the previous DEP problem, and he's trying to make it a better situation for the area and the property itself. We'll get to that argument when we get a plan. But,
Well, Mr. Cohen, that's what we're trying to do. But if
I
the board
understand
is
that.
to look favorable on it, we have to clean everything up, and your applicant will start fresh if the board looks favorable on doing that. But it all has to be spelled out in the resolution, and it cleans up the loose ends, the past. If we set that timeline of the past, then we know where we're at today. If the resolution is granted, or if the approval is granted, your applicant won't have to come back to the board unless he, tears down the house and wants to rebuild 2 houses, then he'll come back. But we're trying to eliminate any future problems with the property, but we got to get it cleaned up first. We've got to have that timeline to know what's grandfathered, what's not grandfathered. Then we can work from that point forward, and then get your applicant, get your client.
And Mr. Chairman, as you're probably aware at this point, whoever did those improvements, obviously not my client or anybody near ownership of my client, they did them illegally. I mean, they didn't get permits for them. They didn't go to the DEP. They didn't come to Howell Township. In fact, there's a history of violations in your land use section of the township where I was able to get copies of that. There was someone living illegally in the property. They were hounding. They cited him. He was going to file for application, but never did. So it never got to where it should have gotten in 1999 and 2002. And like I said, ever since.
I understand that, but we need to set that timeline.
Yep.
So, and bring that to date, because if a lot of this is probably going to predate ordinances. So, once we set that timeline, then it gives us a starting point. In 2007, I heard a while ago, but it gives us that starting point. Okay, what was done after 2007, and then we can start moving forward. Even versus into the planning testimony and engineering testimony to move forward. There might not be.
Well, there's nothing been done since 2007. It's whether it's been done before and it's grandfathered or not, and that's our job to prove to you. I get it.
Exactly, but we have to set those timelines. We need that information.
And Charlie, you want to hear it from like a Brian Du Bois or an environmental scientist or something?
Yes, something that has an environmental background that the board can, rely on. What I would also add, Todd, is, the plan that we got shows a proposed 20 by 40 foot pool. Obviously, that's additional impervious area that you're putting on the site there. So,
Yeah, that's the least important application,
Yeah.
but I hear what you're saying.
If there is a need to make any, get any permits retroactively, that would be certainly beneficial for the applicant to go and get the permits for that now, if needed, as opposed to putting in the pool and then, it becoming an issue later.
Mr. Chairman, with that all being said, I'm not real sure how much more we can do this evening.
I agree. Eileen, do we have another date?
I guess it depends on how much time Mr. Cohen needs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Mr. DeFalco, how long do you think it would take?
I mean, I don't know. I've got to send these letters. I've got to hire an expert. We've got to send these letters. We got to get a planner. I mean, we need some time. We got to do some research. I don't know. Couple meetings.
I have October 26th has one application carried to it that I'm not sure if they're going to go or not. I have November 9th.
Earlier, I don't think we need more than October.
You want October 26th?
Sure.
I just need an extension of time as well on the record.
Yes, I'll grant you the extension of time and I'll put it in writing tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. thank you, Mr. Cohen, for sticking it out with us here. It's unusual times here.
Absolutely. And just a general comment, and please don't get mad at me.
No.
But you guys have made a decision to have these meetings virtual for the balance of the year, and I totally respect that decision. And I'm seeing a lot of more towns are doing it too, but you really got to figure this out a little better. I don't mean to be critical of anybody in the room at all. I know it's not your fault, but this meeting tonight, I mean, if you look back on it, I just sat there and watched these applications. It's very difficult to hear. It's difficult to keep a continuity, and the system just doesn't seem to be where it should be. I just don't know. I know everybody's trying hard, and I get it's a tough time, but we just got to try and figure out the technical stuff a little better, I think. Just my 2 cents.
No, we appreciate that. We are trying to work with IT on that to come up with something better.
Yeah. Okay, case number BA 1924, Christoph Ruska will be carried to October 26th, 7:30 p.m. with no further notice.
Thank you, Mr.
An extension of time will be issued. Okay. Is there any other business before the board? Eileen, any other business we have?
I have no other business. Thank you.
Board members, any other business?
Mr. Chairman, is my client still on the line there?
Yeah,
Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. I'll call you in the morning and explain what's happening, and we'll go over all this, all right?
Okay. Thank you.
And when the meeting's over, if Mr. Tropoli could stay, I need to ask him something. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
So-
Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
So should I stay on the line? Should I stay?
No, you're good. You can go. I'll call you in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, zoning board adjustment adjourned 10:03.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Just stay on there. I'll go check.
Take care.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night, all.